Здравствуйте, and welcome to the Rushing to Conclusions podcast. We're a podcast started by Slavic immigrants who just want to share a piece of our world with the new world. We'll be talking about the Slavic youth experience in the US, so that means we'll be discussing everything from meat jelly to the challenges of taking in two cultures at once. Whatever the issue, we aim to have a conclusion, or a couple, so stick around, put on the tea kettle, and settle in as we rush off to our next conclusion.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about Slavic penny pinching and just different ways of saving money. What better time to talk about funny and kind of crazy ways that we've grown up saving money, and we watched our parents save money, and we kind of thinking about what the future of saving money is going to look like after everything is done. So that's kind of the main idea of the episode.
Yeah, so once the economy completely collapses, you'll have enough money to live off of, maybe.
Yeah, once everything is gone to crap and the new currencies are printed, we really want to know how to survive. So that's what this is really all about. A lot of cultures have a tendency of saving money. Maybe not so much American culture, but a lot of cultures have a tendency of saving money. And I'm not saying that Americans don't save money. I'm just saying America is a uniquely consumerist culture.
All that to say that, Slavic culture has more in common with other cultures than American culture when it comes to saving money. Because Americans save money, they just do it in a different way.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things we're going to talk about is the different spending structure and everything else. But the Slavic subset is unique in the immigrant scene as well, because a lot of our parents came from the Soviet Union mentality and the Soviet Union economy, and they kind of lived through the collapse and all that stuff. So I think a lot of that really informs how they spend and /save money. I remember Grandma telling me a story that her and her siblings in their village, they actually shared a lot of things. They shared a spoon for a bowl of borscht. So
can you imagine them all sitting around in a circle, just everyone takes a turn?
Yeah, I don't know how that really works. I guess they would make one bowl of borscht and pass the spoon around.
And Grandma had a big family. Wait. Wait, hold on. I think I know what you're talking about, because my mom has kind of explained this to me. In their village, they would make not a bowl, but they would make a whole pot of borscht. And then there'd be one communal spoon, and everyone would just the whole village would contribute to the borscht, and then everyone would take a portion of borscht.
That sounds like that
story.
Stone soup story.
Yeah, it does.
Dang.
I have no idea what that is.
You never heard the stone soup story? It's this guy comes to this village and everyone's like, oh, we're starving, we have nothing. And he's like, well, could you give us just some boiling water? And then he asks the next person, well, could you just spare some carrots? Well, could you just spare some of this? And everyone individually contributes something. And then at the end, he throws it all in a pot and makes a soup out of it. And everyone's like, wow, we have food. Which
is interesting. Also, I don't know where the stone comes into that story.
Oh, yeah, there's a stone in there somewhere. I loosely remember it, so I don't really know. Rationing was common in villages. I just can't imagine the stuff that the grandma lived through, the stuff they didn't even think twice about sharing. I mean, they did it obviously out of necessity. To think about that now, we don't even stand within 6 feet of someone.
and there they had to all sleep in the same room.
Yeah, which is actually, that's another point. That's another unique way that immigrants save money, is just when you see multi-generational households where you have a grandparent, a parent, and a child all live in one house. I think that's just something that's uniquely different from just seeing a typical Western family, right? But that's a huge money saver.
Yeah, it is.
That's a massive money saver.
We used to, Grandma lived with us back in Ukraine, and our older brothers had to sleep in the same room, share a room with our grandma. It's different from the individualistic society.
Yeah, especially here where you'll hear stories of parents who, kick their kids out at 18 or make them pay rent at 18 as soon as they're an adult.
Yeah, that is different. one thing, I was reading an article about like immigrants being able to save money more, and this quote was really interesting. They said, one factor you missed out on is immigrants are used to a much lower standard of living in their home countries. So while their income jumps quite a bit after they get to America, their standard of living adjusts much slower. So we were used to like a lower standard of living, and then you come to America. Like, for example, I mean, that's not maybe a super common example, but like you said, like 3 people sleeping in one room. That was just kind of the norm back then. So if you can do that, I remember you guys had that room that was like your very first house in America, that duplex on the corner. Mm-hmm. You had like wasn't it like all plywood or something? It's just something weird about that room. I don't remember. I
mean, me and John had to share a room, and then Arthur and Stan, our brothers, shared a room.
Yeah, I guess it's not super uncommon. Like a lot of larger families do that anyway.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like where it's like multi-generational, like your grandparents are living with you, or like your extended family, like that's common in other cultures.
Yeah, so, right.
Maybe people do that here in America where it's like really necessary, where you're taking care of like an older parent that's sick or something like that. I feel like it's not typical.
It's not the norm.
Yeah. So because of different economy that our parents and grandparents grew up, and they're not used to like what's here in America, and the different societal structure, it all kind of contributes to that life's,
so
habits.
What do you mean by societal structure?
Just like the bigger individual versus like community or collective.
So do you mean like, Japan is a more like not an individualistic society where everyone kind of is thinking about the bigger, everyone as a whole, and while in America it's very individualized where everyone's just kind of looking out after themselves, and they're more focused on, it's not necessarily like a bad difference, it's just how different cultures are set up. So more Eastern, including Slavic cultures, are very communal focused, where everyone's part of the culture, everyone is looking out for each other. They're thinking about how, like, for example, families, kids often think about, if I do this, will this be honoring my parents? Will my parents be like, have a bad reputation from this? Like, you want to keep.
Do you think that way?
My parents want me to, but not always. I
don't think exactly that way. We don't go through that thought process of like, I'm about to do this. Will this honor my parents? But you kind of do. That's a consideration that happens. I mean, maybe not overtly, but at least for us, maybe because maybe some kids are guilted into it, where the parents are like, "What will people think?"
Well, our parents definitely have that mindset where they want to keep everything behind closed doors. You don't want to hang out your laundry,
the dirty laundry
for everyone to see. So yes, in that sense, in the more communal society, everyone. I'm sorry, I forgot what your point was.
Well, I'm just saying that because of the kind of society, like the economy and the societal structure that our parents and grandparents grew up in, it kind of formed their mindset and their habits about how they spent money and how they saved money. So that contributes to how it kind of came about.
Well, yeah, of course, because if they have such limited resources, there's a lot of rationing going on. You can only buy a certain amount of butter or bread to bring home to your family. You're going, you can't just go out to the grocery store and buy 10 loaves of bread.
Right.
There. I mean, right now, I guess some people are getting a glimpse of that.
Today, you still can't go out and buy 10 loaves of bread,
Yeah, because of the rationing happening during the pandemic. But that is a good point, that because of their lives, obviously they're going to have different views on being able to buy stuff.
It's just a matter of adjusting to where you are. So, for example, I always thought this was interesting. When Grandma lived with us, she would always reuse like a napkin. She'd have like a little drawer of napkins, and then so that's interesting. So Grandma would do that, and like it would get to the point where my mom would have to like take them away and be like, okay, you need new napkins, right? And that's kind of like, it was kind of, I didn't understand it back then, but then you also have to think from her perspective. She also went through a time when there was famine. She literally lived through a famine where people were starved, not only because there was no food, but they were intentionally starved. I mean, it's kind of a whole different historical topic, but Ukraine went through a famine in 1932, 1933, that was really a horrific time. It was called the Holodomor, which translates like man-made famine. It was when all the food was being centralized, taken from Ukraine and other surrounding states from the Soviet Union and brought into central location, brought to like Moscow and everything else. So she lived through that, and I don't even know a quarter of the stuff that she had to do to survive, the quarter of the stuff all those people had to do to survive. So when she comes here, this is kind of an extreme example, but when she comes here, she, has like just this ingrained, I think maybe it's a survival instinct at that point, to just save napkins or save everything she can, because I'm sure she wasn't planning on this happening. And so the mindset is like, well, we don't know what else is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was hard to think of. Like if she would have told me that, I would have been like, okay, well, obviously nothing's going to happen here. Right. But here it's happening now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she was, how old was she when we came here? Like, already in her late 70s.
Yeah.
So she grew up her whole life in that mindset, basically.
And she had a good reason to have that mindset, because it would happen. Like, she lived through a time where it happened, and then...
And those, like, habits are hard to break. Like, for example, like, our parents, they like to hoard certain things. Where it's like, my mom, for example, she realizes that, like, okay, maybe we don't need these things, but I'm keeping them because it's such a habit of, like, back in Ukraine, they didn't have so many things. And now it's like you can grab everything you can because you have the opportunity now.
Yes.
So,
yep, very much so. Well, so the flip side of that is when my mom went through, like, she saved money in a bank or something, and she saved up a lot of money, right? And then when the Soviet Union started collapsing, the banks were ordered not to give out money. So everything you'd have saved in your bank account was just like not usable. It was frozen. So at that point, it was like, you saved up all this money and this money is useless. So what's the point there? So that's kind of an interesting perspective, because it kind of goes counter to the idea of let's hoard everything, where she was like, well, if we're so frugal and don't spend anything, that could happen as well. It's like a catch-22. If I save all this crap and then economic collapse happens and, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now you don't have any money.
Yeah.
So don't save. So then you hoard crap, you don't save any money.
Yeah, like my mom likes to say, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's so true.
So it's more at the forefront of their minds. It's not like an afterthought. It's usually like an active part of their day. They're more conscious of it happening.
So that's kind of the context in which our experience was formed. That's kind of the backgrounds, because when we came to America, man, I just remember, like, so I don't know about you guys, I did not have a good concept of what America was going to be like.
Oh, I had an amazing concept. I used to think that in stores in America, everything was free. You would go into the store. Yeah. You can grab whatever you want and just walk out. Everything's free. And I had this, like, this thing in my head where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Like, in America, we get to just go to the store and grab whatever we want.
Why did you have that perspective? Why did you think that? Did someone tell you that? Or was that just like a dream come true thing for you?
I mean, I was like 7 when we moved here. So that's not that old. Like,
yeah.
I don't remember much of what I was thinking, but because you always hear of like people back in Russia and like the Slavic countries that they think that America's like this amazing land where everything's like perfect and you get everything you want. And it's like, maybe that had something to do with it, because I think that people have thought that for a long time, because everyone looks at America as this amazing country.
They think that now, but there was a time that my mom was telling, when the Soviet Union was going on, they spread much misinformation about the U.S. They said like the U.S. were barbarians, you know, they wanted to take everything, you know, you don't want to go over there, the life is horrible, just a lot of propaganda in that way. So after the collapse, when people got a good view of America, they were like, maybe they went on the opposite spectrum and was like, whoa, like this is the land, you know, that will make everything better. So when we came over, when we came over, having that perspective, at least it made me mistake everything that was like charity here as like the amazing free stuff that confirms the bias that I had. I remember somebody showed us a picture of somebody we somehow knew in America. They sent us a picture. It was one of our relatives that was calling us over. And they were like in a swimming pool. You know, they had a in-ground swimming pool in their house, and I was like, wow, I just thought everybody was gonna get one of those things. So when we came over, at least for me, you know, one of the biggest things from my childhood, I remember, just we didn't have, you know, money, jobs, nothing, barely knew the language, so we spent a lot of time being connoisseurs at Besplatka, which is an amazing thing. Besplatka is like a Russian slang for, I mean, I don't know what it translates to.
Besplatka literally means like
without pay. Without payment.
Without payment, right. It's
or like a place where you go to get free stuff.
Yeah, just like a pantry in
well, yeah, basically it's referring
pantry.
to anywhere where you get free stuff. For us, that was like the pantry.
Yeah, the local like pantry,
food pantry for like
they,
homeless or like people who are low income.
Yeah, they just give out food. So I, having no understanding of what that was at all, was like, holy crap, this is amazing. You can come here, stand in a line, and just walk through and get free food. And I remember distinctly like just being so hyped up about this that I was on the school bus going to school, and I know after school we were going to go to the pantry. And some kid was like, I think some kid asked me like what plans I had or something. And I was just like, we're going to the store that gives out free food. And he was like, what? I've never heard of that. And I was like, oh man, like it's super cool. I don't know how more people don't know about this.
I can't believe, I always find this so funny that you like.
I don't know why I thought that. I think because my mom explained it to me that way. She just said like, yeah, you know, this is, so she wasn't going to say this is like homeless people charity or whatever. She just explained it that way. And I was like, oh yeah, like we get the inside deal on this pantry stuff. Oh yeah. And while you're at it, to kill two birds with one stone, right across the street is a thrift store that's just like, basically like, yeah. And I was like, I thought I was in heaven because there was so much cheap stuff.
People refer to it as the Russian Mall.
The Russian Mall.
Because all the Russians shop there.
All the Slavic people shop there. And you know what? You can find some good stuff in there though. That's the thing.
Yeah, now it's trendy.
I know, yeah, now it's trendy.
But when we were kids, I was
That's where we got our toys. That's where we got our clothes.
Everything.
That's like where I got books. Everything came from that thrift store.
I used to be so embarrassed that all my clothes were thrifted for like the first couple years that we were in America. I was just like, this would be so embarrassing if anyone found out.
At what point did you think it was embarrassing right away, or at what point were you like, this is like old stuff, it was kind of embarrassing?
I think like maybe middle school, where I started to realize you would see other kids, you know, wearing like Hollister and Abercrombie and Aeropostale and American Eagle, and you're like, wow. And then you would hear them talk about how they went shopping with their mom over the weekend, and then you kind of start to realize like, dang, my clothes are kind of, you know, secondhand. I don't have any brand new clothes. And then I'm like, wow, I think all my clothes that I have are from the thrift store. And so, you're like a little pre-tween, and you're like, want, people to like you, and you're kind of embarrassed by that.
See, my solution to that was to thrift Aeropostale and Abercrombie.
I was always, I really got paranoid because at a certain point I realized that, and I was going to a private school, which was taking up all the money that my mom could make. So I was like, what I started realizing is that these kids who have all this crap are actually donating it to these stores that I'm shopping in.
Okay, that's hilarious.
And once I realized that, I really became paranoid. I'm like, what if I buy one of my classmates' stuff? And
that's so good.
And at that point, I just started being really careful, like trying to like sort of notice what kids were
watch
wearing,
what are they wearing
so
today.
that I knew like what to avoid. It was just at that point I was like, oh yeah, so this isn't what I thought it was. The best part though for me, you mentioned getting toys. I think absolutely the best part for me was getting Christmas presents from that place.
Okay. We still don't know what this place is. Does anyone know?
So a couple of things. So they would give it out at different like schools, I think. You're right. The present place I don't remember. I know the coat place. We also give out free coats. That was at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That was just a local school.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
the
like
presents.
Christmas presents.
I don't remember what the place is. We haven't gotten them in so long. I don't remember.
I know
what it is.
that like I think it might have something to do with the Packers. Maybe.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't know. I think my mom mentioned something like that.
Either way, it's like this. It's like this. I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's a charity where they.
I think it's something that you like maybe signed up for every year.
Yes, actually, yeah, Mom had to sign up for it every year.
Yeah,
in order to be able to, because she would go out and pick out the presents for us.
Yep.
And that is one of my earliest memories in America. Was when on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve I came in, and as a kid everything looks a lot bigger, so it probably didn't look this big, but in our little duplex living room, everything from like floor on the couches, everything was just covered in wrapped Christmas presents.
Like,
and it was
what America
it was
like?
The most real Christmas present I have. Like, I didn't even think of it in terms of like, oh, America. I didn't understand it yet. I just remember being so excited to see all of that stuff. And then a few years later, where like that kind of dwindled because we weren't like brand new immigrants anymore. All I remember was feeling so horrible because I got little Beanie Babies and Ida got a coat hanger and some dog spray. Literally for 1 year. I felt so horrible.
What's the best gift you've gotten from one of those things?
Oh,
I had a Barbie set, a huge Barbie set with so many clothes, and I would play so long with those dolls. It was great.
Yeah, I think it was the dolls. I remember we got like a set of like international like mini dolls where it's like they were all dressed up in different, cultures.
And also like my mom, she didn't want me to open those. I had to beg her for like a week to let me open them because she wanted to save them or sell them. I don't quite remember. But see, it's that mentality that like
you can't enjoy what you have right now. You have to you have to save it for whenever we need it next.
The best thing I got was this big red truck. It was just like a random Ford truck, but I couldn't read Ford because of the logo font, and so I thought it was like Folk or Folka or something like that. And I'll be honest, it was about 2.5 years before I actually correlated Ford to that logo. It's also pretty embarrassing, but I just remember getting it. You just go and get it, and it's free, and then you don't know what's gonna be in there. The mystery, like you know what I mean. The mystery is the best part of it, and it's random crap. Most of it you're not gonna use. It's just like I had no need for, but it was the whole experience of getting it.
Yeah. So the coats. The free coats is also something that you would sign up for, like, I don't know, like, I think it all depends on your income.
Yeah.
So, like, our parents...
Yeah, at this point, our parents, they were driving, like, 20 minutes away working at a factory.
Yeah.
For minimum wage, just while they were getting on their feet. So they were
They took those opportunities where they could to get free things, and
right, which was really, really cool. The coats thing is funny because the free coats was like it's I think it still is a thing, but
yeah,
it was advertised on the news, like, they're giving out these coats, come down or whatever, and they do like the news would do a segment there, so they'd always have cameras there, and there's nothing more terrifying than like praying you don't get on the news when your classmates see you standing in line like just like standing there like ducking. That's I think where my anxiety is just like from. I think chronic anxiety comes from standing and ducking from cameras. You don't know where the cameras are, and then you don't know who's gonna see you, and then the next day I never know who watched the news, and I'd come into school and be
right.
like, who knows,
who knows where my coat is
who knows where I was yesterday.
Yeah, I would like get so mad when my mom would take forever to pick out these coats and be like, Mom, hurry up, I'll just take whatever one.
Yeah,
Let's
like
go.
that looks good. That looks good. Just go. Yep, that looks fine.
Oh, I don't know. I had a different experience for sure because I was kind of like, I loved going with my mom. I mean, I hated standing in line and stuff, but I didn't even think of, probably because I didn't have any friends, or I don't know.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But I loved going with my mom to Besplatka, to the thrift store, because it was always like an adventure.
You were also a little bit younger than us.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't quite realize it, and it was more normalized to me by the time I did get to that age, that I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so funny to look back on it now.
Yep.
Compare.
It's just a free lunch, free school lunch.
Yeah, and like, they had a la carte items. Like, where there's like, muffins and like chips and like Gatorade and Propel. Back to middle school.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just be so jealous of those kids who could just go up there and get that stuff because, their parents would put money on their school lunch account to get that stuff. And we had free lunch, so you weren't only allowed to get like the main lunch.
Yeah.
So,
see, I actually remember Stan, when I was going to middle school, warning me about that. Because I think he did that once where he just like
accidentally
kind of grabbed some stuff and then they were like, yeah, sorry, like you don't have money on your account for that, and he had put it back. So he was like, don't do that.
Yeah. I think the most embarrassing thing that happened to me was, you'd have those like chocolate milks in the carton. I still love them in the carton.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the most embarrassing things is besides when I realized I could grab as many ketchups as I wanted to, and I haven't had ketchup before, where I just kept grabbing and no one said stop, so I just kept grabbing and grabbing and grabbing.
How many did you grab?
I don't know. It was a couple handfuls. I just don't know why it tasted good. And then
for one meal.
Yeah, but it wasn't like to season my meal. It was just like I was gonna go at this ketchup because I was hungry. Okay, I should note at this point, I became fairly portly because of the abundance of food. So my Ukrainian digestive system that was used to like fresh vegetables and starvation couldn't really handle like Danishes and processed meat. Like, I mean, it could handle it. It's just the amount that I intook was much greater than any 8-year-old ever should. So besides grabbing that massive amount of ketchup and then just I overate so much ketchup, I don't remember if I threw up, but I definitely like was nauseated for
was
most
this
of the
like
day.
one time, like
Yeah,
one day you just grabbed a bunch of ketchup and ate it?
I think, I don't know why, I think I just got to that point where I was like, I need more food, and so I grabbed ketchups, and I clearly remember this. I was sitting at the end of the table. I remember my friend Diego was across from me, and like another friend was sitting to the left of me, and they kind of looked at me, but they're like, whatever, do your thing. And I just kept tearing them open and eating them just like one bite, tear open, put the whole packet in your mouth, and then just slide it out from between your teeth. That was my game plan. And
so funny.
And I got really nauseated, but I didn't know right away why I was. So yeah, I ate way more than I should. The other embarrassing thing that happened was when, you know how our parents don't like us to drink cold stuff because that's why we get sick?
Yep.
Apparently. Well, my mom had told me, she's like, when you take that chocolate milk, put it in your locker and warm it up. And the one time I actually listened to her, I took it, and I was the one weird kid who everyone walked back into the classroom. It was like during snack time, walked back into the classroom, put their milks down, and I walked right to my locker and shoved it in my locker and walked back into the classroom. And
He's gonna rot in there by the end of the day.
yeah, I kind of wonder why I had no friends when I first came here. But anyways.
Man. Another thing concerning school was I have this memory where this is also like something you sign up for like back to school. You would get a free backpack and like school supplies and some clothes, actually, because I remember I don't remember like if this was the first year or second year when we came to America, but I remember getting like a whole new backpack, all these school supplies, and a whole outfit, like a shirt and pants. Like I was like, whoa, this is amazing. I get free clothes and they're brand new.
I do remember that. That was so much fun. Like you would get to pick out the backpack, you would get to pick out the school supplies, and then you get to pick out like a nice like pair of jeans and a cool shirt that you're gonna stunt on everybody with on the first day of school. You're like,
pretty sure I wore that shirt for a couple years.
I had one pair of like, they were jeans, but they were like dyed with pink something, just like a little bit, so it looked kind of like, I don't know, edgy or whatever. And I looked back at them like, I think last year my mom keeps them around for whatever reason, you know. And I like took them out and looked at them, and boy, let me tell you, they were as wide as they were long. I was like, I just remember that time in my life. But you see how all these things were like feeding into, like, I had no way to grasp reality when I got here, that all the free crap we were being given out wasn't like just because America loved us so much.
Right.
But
that's true. Like, you had no idea.
If only that was the case.
I know. Right? But you know, so you come back to this thing, and it goes from school to living at home. I think we mentioned that the multi-generational thing where you have grandparents, parents, kids living in their homes, and it saves money, and it gives, you know, free childcare, and it's just ingrained into a way of life, so you don't think about it. But in today's society, you know, how much does childcare cost? Like, how much?
If you think about it, like, a lot of Americans pay to have their kids in daycare, but I know for a lot of our Slavic, I don't know how it is for Americans, but I know that a lot of our Slavic families here, like, the grandparents will babysit or help out with childcare while, you know, the parents have to go to work, and that saves so much money.
And I'm sure that is, I know that's true for a lot of American families too, but I feel like it's more common for American families to use, you know, childcare centers or pay someone to babysit their kids. Like, I've never heard of a Slavic family paying someone else who that they don't know, like hiring someone to babysit their kids. If they get a babysitter, it is usually like a family member or or
a sibling.
It's all to the family.
Yeah,
that's how I would take it, at least.
Or someone from like church, because, you know, many Slavics here come from that background.
Right. Yeah. Churches are. Yeah, that could be a whole nother episode too. Just like the role they play in Slavic life and how differently they're utilized. But yeah, that's definitely a great point. I think that also translates into like, someone was saying kids don't move out as early, or they're not expected, like, you're 18, you're getting kicked out. Like, you're welcome to stick around. Like, if you have a job and contribute and do your part. Like
no one expects you to move out when you're 18, or most parents expect you to move out when you're married. And some parents are,
which could be at 18. It could be close to the 18 age, right?
That is also another topic.
If you haven't listened to the Slavic singles episode, go listen to that right now because that's where it's at.
Yeah, but it's like a taboo kind of thing sometimes where you actually, if you want to move out on your own before you're married.
Yeah, you're seen as ungrateful for, your parents wanting you to stay, obviously, and you're seen as ungrateful for not accepting their, hospitality, I guess, because it's very, they're like, yeah, of course, we're not, you're our kid, of course we're gonna be there to support you. We don't want you to just have to deal with everything on your own type thing.
Yeah, you see how that's just so kind of different from how certain American families, especially the more well-off American families, where you're expected to be self-sufficient, pay for your own schooling or whatever. I mean,
yeah.
In general terms, that's not something we think about. One thing also I was reading is Slavic and immigrant families are more, their priorities are kind of different, and in terms of savings, how you save and what you save for. For example, I was reading this article and they're talking about how immigrants who move over here for work, skilled workers, they tend to save for shorter term things, they'd save for maybe a car, education, a home purchase, rather than retirement or 401k or all those longer term investments. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that they provide assistance to family members. If you have elderly family members living at home, you're going to provide for them as well. And so in turn, I don't need to have a 401k or retirement, because if I got married and you have kids, then I can very well expect those kids to provide for me when I'm younger or older. So I don't need to save as much money. I think that's one of the important differences in how they save and why we would save. So getting a good car is a bigger priority than getting a Roth IRA started.
Well, because it seems like they're investing. Well, yeah, it does. The individual versus the communal, because, let's take retirement, for example. It seems like a lot of Slavic parents have this mentality to invest in their kids or relatives in the more short term, as in buying them a car, helping them set up their lives in a better way, so that when they are older, they're less concerned with maybe saving for retirement as much as because they'll know that if they invest in their kids now, maybe their kids later in their older life will help take care of them when they are old. So their retirement plan, in a sense, is investing in their kids now.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that I see it, at least.
I think another point is, here in America, we have it, it is a first world country. It is, our economy is really great. It was really great.
Sort of was.
I guess we have it. For example, we didn't grow up as our parents did. We don't know all the hardships that they've gone through, financially and the government and all those types of things. So I think maybe here in America, since we have this, you can be your own boss. You can start a business. You can get that American dream.
I have a unique business opportunity for you. The start of every pyramid scheme. You know what? That's another thing. Maybe a different episode. Why? All right. Why are so many Slavic people prone to pyramid schemes? I don't know.
They're trying to make extra money.
Why is anyone attracted to a pyramid scheme? Because the get rich quick scheme is very appealing,
Yeah, so, we don't have a ton of hardship in this country right now compared to third world countries, right. Compared to history. We have it so good here. But I think maybe that plays a factor into people not being so frugal with their money here. And that, I guess to make a conclusion about all this, I think, for us as we are growing up and we're growing up in America here, but we're also taking in the things that our parents are, we see their choices, their habits, and we kind of have to make a choice about how we're gonna live. And
right, it's basically survival for them, whereas it's for us, it's just where are you gonna put your money?
Yeah.
What do you like to do? What are your hobbies?
Right. We can take risks and we can be more, a little more spendy and not really, save every penny.
Right. So, okay. So in terms of conclusions, okay, one question I was thinking about is, and it's exactly what you just said, what type of spending habits do immigrant kids grow up with as a result? Because there's kind of two choices. There's one choice where let's say you get married, right? And then you have kids, and then so now when you first came to America, you guys didn't have anything. You got the free charity. You now have been woke to the fact that it was all charity and not America loving you a whole lot. I mean, it is sort of love, but are you going to teach your kids that same lesson, or are you going to provide for your kids what you never had? And it's kind of interesting because our generation parents, they kind of go either way, or they kind of struggle in that tension. Am I gonna try to teach the next generation the lesson that my parents and I, as a result, to a lesser degree, but still affected by that? Or am I gonna take advantage of the full opportunity and buy them not, charity presents?
Brand new.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? What do you do?
Okay, the first thing is that I feel like, hopefully we will be in a position where we won't have to, we won't be, actually be qualified to buy them, use charity to buy them things. I mean, I think that it's definitely important to have a balance between, wanting to give your kids maybe the things that you didn't get, which is what our parents tried to do for us, versus having them end up being entitled towards it and thinking that this is how it is, this is what I deserve, and this is how it's always going to be. So I think taking your kid to a thrift store and teaching them that it is perfectly okay to utilize things like that and to save money, there's nothing wrong with that. And teaching them that, a lot of brand items and buying overpriced things just because they are expensive and overpriced to show off your wealth is very narcissistic and vain.
Which, right, one thing I thought of that as you were saying that, I knew a family who were adopting a kid from Russia, and they went over to Russia to visit the city and visit the orphanage that he was from, and they were really struck by the fact that, it was their first time in Russia, and they were struck by the fact that it wasn't a really great neighborhood. A lot of the apartment buildings were kind of run down and everything like that. But the people, she was like, if you follow the people, they're dressed in prime clothes. They're dressed in the latest brands, the latest everything. I mean, they're dressed up to a T. They look like celebrities. Then they go back home to these run down apartments, less than 1,000 square foot apartments, and just really dinky living situations. But when they're in public, they have all this bling on and all this stuff. And I thought that was interesting as you were saying that.
Well, my mom has I've heard it a couple times from her where she'll be like, we'll get dressed up to go to Walmart and we in our pajamas, and she'll be like, in Ukraine, when we lived, to go to the market, women would walk 5 miles in heels to get to the market to buy stuff. And so why do you think that is? Why do they put such emphasis on it?
I think it's I think it maybe is this materialism, or because if you're dressed a certain way, people will think a certain way of you. People will think more highly of you if you're.
I think what else can you do? That's your first line of making an impression on someone, and when you don't have a whole lot, I mean, clothes are great. I mean, a personal statement, great. So somebody, I can't remember who said it, but somebody said it, and the saying stuck with me. He said, they said something like, you can't do anything about being poor, but you can do something about looking poor, or something like that. Meaning you may not be in control of the circumstances you're put in, but you can at least not be trashy.
Right.
Which maybe that's kind of what they're going after with how they're dressed. But that was an interesting point, because now, I mean, so millionaires here are you'll see this guy and he's got shorts on, flip flops, just a t-shirt. He looks like an average guy, then he goes out into this Lamborghini and drives off to his mansion in the hills. And it's like, okay, well, wish I would have known you were a millionaire. Maybe I could have been nice to you and you would have befriended me or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, going back to that family that went and visited, I think that's another good point that maybe this is, I guess, part of my conclusion is that I would keep my kids connected to their, like, origins. And if I have the opportunity to visit myself and take them, that's what I would want to do, to be like, you know what, this is what life is like in a different place. Like, this is, like, draw a conclusion yourself. Should you be grateful for the things you have when you have this contrast that happens? So I think that's really important to keep connected. Just like that kind of goes back to the fact that, you know, Slavic families, most that I know, send things back to relatives still in that country.
Yep.
Like our mom, called posilke, or packages, is a direct translation, where there's care packages full of sometimes food, clothes that they send back to either sell or consume or use themselves. You know, things like feminine products that are expensive, that are rare.
Yep.
Or like peanut butter, even.
Yeah.
Apparently
Oh my
isn't a
goodness. Peanut butter. Let me tell you a story about peanut butter real quick. When we went back to Ukraine and visited, and we brought like jars of peanut butter to the kids, these kids were like, they didn't know what to call it. So they were like, this is honey.
Oh.
And we were like, yeah, here you go. And they loved it so much. They would run around. They'd get super hyped up on peanut butter and sprinting around the yards and being like, I love honey. I love honey. And then, like, as we're about to leave, they were like, can we have more honey?
Oh.
I mean,
It's
I don't know
just-
what peanut butter, yeah.
It's just crazy when you think about the differences between life in America and in other places.
I think it's a must to go visit another country and not like go to Cancun for a vacation. I mean, like, go see real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Go to, if you have family ancestry from somewhere, if you take your ancestry.com test or whatever, right? Just, I think it's really neat. Go back there and see just different life, because some of what I've come to realize, some of the strange things that seem to us to not be understanding, like, why is grandma using that same napkin again? There's a whole rhyme and reason to it that if you look at it, if you're aware of it, if you appreciate it, can really impact the way you do things. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my conclusion, I guess. Yeah,
So-
everyone is in unique circumstances, but I think this is, from our experience, just the best way we can wrap our minds around the economy. I mean, again, I have to keep understanding that there's a whole different economic and social thought that went into my grandparents and parents. I mean, for goodness sakes, my great-grandfather was our great-grandfather. My great-grandfather. I don't know. So was like a blacksmith and was like he lived under a king. How have times changed now?
Yeah.
Where are we now? So
It's
that's
important to be aware.
Yeah,
of all of it.
So that's just an interesting thing that that I thought about, and we honestly have so many more embarrassing stories about things.
We should dedicate just a whole one.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, I'm
Just
just gonna write down all the
embarrassing
embarrassing things that happened to me, because I just don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the amount of cultural misunderstanding and everything.
So
That be it.
I think that wraps it up. Join us for our next episode.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna say ciao, but
Ciao.
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 Ciao.